What up, everybody? We are here with not the one, two, three, four. Here with the five-time Gold Standard Gecko Club champion, Nicholetta Donaldson from Giulianas Geckos. Nicholetta, show me your trophies, yo. Show me how many trophies you got.
Nice. Okay, I got one, two. I can't hold them all. Three,
Three,
four, and five.
five trophies. So you won Best of Show. Chip won Best Dalmatian. Then you had, how do you say her name? Gertrude?
Gertrude.
These English names,
I
man.
call her Gertie.
All right, Gertie won Red Base, and Bertha won Best Lily White. And Chip also won Best Dalmatian in the first ever Gold Standard we did in Flora Fauna. So your boy
Yes.
has three trophies.
Mm-hmm.
How does
He's
it
pretty
feel? How
awesome.
does it feel to have five trophies just chilling? Are you gonna take them
Well,
to a reptile expo and just lay them out while you're
thought
vending?
about it. Well, here's the
You
thing that I
should.
think. At what point in your adult life do you get to earn trophies? Like my kids, when these arrived, they were like, "What? You got trophies?" I was like, "Yeah, I did, and they're mine, so don't touch them." So it
Yeah.
feels pretty good, especially sending them out there to you like a little bit on a whim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chip is a stud, and that gecko he'll always be here. He'll never leave me. He's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
I think people,
the
yeah,
girls
those
I sent
girls.
you, their dad competed at Flora Fauna last year.
Yeah, and I guess we should just
He
announce it
didn't win
that.
though.
Wait, which one?
Mac.
Oh, Mac. Yeah, he didn't win. Who won Bread Base that year? It was one of Fireside's gecko. I forgot this. Nova, was it Nova? The name of the gecko?
I don't know. I
She's
honestly
she's
don't
like, I
remember.
don't. She's like, I don't care. That gecko sucks.
No, I love Kevin.
Nicoletta's very competitive. For those of you that don't know her.
Yeah, I am. I am
Uh,
competitive, but no, yeah, no. Mac put up a good competition, but I do not remember which gecko from Kevin, but it was a
Yeah,
nice
I
one.
think the name of that gecko was Nova, if I'm not mistaken. It was a really nice extreme, red base extreme. But anyways, so I'm yo, you know what? It made me feel so good when some of the people that send in their geckos won because I'm like, man, I don't want them to send in their geckos and then they don't win anything. I was gonna feel bad for them, but you
And I
took
was
off, you
threatening
took.
you. I was threatening you. No, just kidding.
Yeah. You guys don't know what I have here. I have the screenshots, but
Oh, I
you
believe
took
it.
you took all the trophies.
That was so fun. I was watching on the online app that you
And
had.
yeah,
I don't remember what it was through, but I think it's where you have your all of your site stuff on. And I kept watching the
yeah,
polls to see if they would change from the
yeah.
common votes of people. It was hard not being there and to be a part of it, but it was really fun to at least like feel like I could be a part of it, even though I wasn't able to actually go to Florida. I think that for me was really fun because I obviously want to support you and I love what you're doing. And I can't go to every show. So having the option to send them was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a last minute decision because we weren't getting a lot of entries. So I was like, well, we got to figure something out because the show at that point, I think when I spoke to you, we were like a week away from the show,
Yeah.
and I had like a handful of entries. I'm like, I need to start bringing more people in. So I thank you for sending in your geckos and like you guys saved the day. You, Nick,
Oh,
Lynn,
I was
and
so glad that
Hannah.
Smoke Show won again too. I was so happy. I love
Yo,
that
and
gecko.
Smoke, yeah, oh my God, he's awesome. And Smoke Show went against Bat Crackers from Morph Menagerie, and he
Mhm.
won by like a little bit. By I think it was like a handful of points, no more than like 8 points. And I was
Wow.
like, man, Bat Crackers might take it this time. And then I added up all the numbers, and I'm like, damn, Smoke Show won again. But
Well, and
but
that
Chip
gecko.
edged the. Yeah, you seen Bat Crackers?
Yeah, just the pictures, not in person.
Yeah, I saw him. So Backcrackers was actually supposed to compete in the first ever Flora Fauna, but he was too small.
Too
He
small. I
was too
remember that.
small.
I remember
So
Gabby talking about that.
yeah, so she brought him this time, and he was close. He's a badass gecko too. So Smoke
So
Show is
cool.
definitely bringing in some good attention for himself. Now I did want to ask you. I always start off like these podcasts with this question because I think it's so interesting when you see somebody that is an established breeder, has won awards. In your case, has won 5 championships. I want to know, like, when was the first time that you actually saw a crested gecko, or that the first interaction that you had with a crested gecko that kind of like sent you down this rabbit hole?
So it's so funny. I was like unloading my dishwasher right before I got on here, and I happened to log on and watch Jordan's interview, the beginning of it. And I saw you ask this question. I was like, he's going to ask me the same question that he
Yeah,
asked
yeah,
Jordan.
yeah.
So honestly, I do remember it. And I've had reptiles since I was a kid. Like, I think my very first gecko, I was like 5 years old, and it was a fat-tailed gecko, and his name was Dinger. And so, like, I've had geckos and bearded dragons and all, every animal you can imagine. I feel like I've owned it at some point in my life. But it was, there's a local Scales and Tails in, like, near the area. And I went into Scales and Tails to buy my boys bearded dragons. And so we got all these bearded dragons, set up and everything. And then I'm like, oh, I want to breed these bearded dragons. So I started breeding the bearded dragons, and like next thing you know, I've got like 8 big 40-gallon tanks in our spare bedroom, and it smells like crickets and bearded dragon poop. And my husband's like, what on earth are you doing? Like, I owned a gym. I was busy like with the kids. I'm like, I don't know. I just love these reptiles. And so that following weekend, after I had this conversation with my husband, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I don't know what's going to turn into. I didn't know anything about the hobby as far as like a business goes or anything, but I went to Reptilian Nation Expo, and it was the first time I'd ever gone to a reptile expo. And I walked into the expo, and granted, like I said, my experience was like, I think I
So
knew
Scales
definitely.
and
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Scales and Tails is a store then?
Mm-hmm. It's
Oh,
a
okay,
local
okay.
store. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
local
okay, I
store.
got you.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
sorry.
gotcha. Okay, so you went to your first reptile expo?
Yeah, and it was Reptilian Nation. I don't know if you've ever been to any of Ryan's shows, but for
Oh
someone
yeah, I've
who's
been
never
to the.
never really seen reptiles, like especially that many in one place. And I had my kids and my husband there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool! This is amazing!" And I had been following the Gargoyle Queen, which I don't even know if she's around still. Is she?
Oh yeah, she's around.
Yeah. So I had followed her on my like Instagram, and I just loved her stuff. And so I'm walking around like trying to find her booth because she was there, and that's all I wanted to see. And so I got to her booth, and I'm looking, and I had seen the gargoyle geckos, and I saw a crested gecko for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in love. Like, that is the coolest animal. And then even then, like there still wasn't very many morphs. You had like, I feel like there was like pinstripes and Dalmatians.
Yeah.
There was no lily whites on the table at that point. Um, and I
What
don't know.
year? What year was this? Do you remember?
The end of 2018, I think.
Okay. Well, so lily whites were here already, but they weren't. You just didn't see any at
They
that
weren't on the
show.
table. Yeah, they weren't on the
I
table
got you.
because,
Okay.
yeah, very quickly after that, um, is when I started going bananas and wanted to have every nice crested gecko that was
Yeah.
there. So I was at the show, and I'm like begging my husband. You would think my little boys would be like, "Dad, please let us get something." But no,
It's
it was
you.
me. I was like, babe, please let me get these crested geckos. And I couldn't get one. I had to get 2. So I got a male and a female, and they were breeder size, and it was from cold blooded only. They don't have cresteds anymore. They're ball pythons now, but they're still local. And so I see them all the time. And it's just, I always look at them and I'm like, you started this. You started this.
Yeah,
And
that's
so my
cool.
first 2 breeder geckos were Hans and Felicia. That
Hans
was
and
their name.
Felicia. Do you still have
Mm-hmm.
them?
No, I ended up selling them like 2021 when I really got into like the higher end stuff, and
Yeah.
we were moving, and it was just kind of crazy. I mean, they were like to me, they were like my first and they were special. But, you know, when I got into breeding, I was like, they're really not the quality that I want. And I had produced
Right.
like some babies that weren't super high quality. So they moved out, but I do have the very first gecko. I bought my son still, Cole. He's 10 and I still have him downstairs, but he will never
He's 10
leave.
years old?
Yeah.
Wait,
He's a
what?
leopard
It's a oh, leopard gecko. Okay. Wow. And so you said 2018 is when all this happened, right? So you started breeding right away.
Oh yeah, because
Since
I'm
the
crazy and psychotic.
So in 2018, you got your first pair, and you're like, I'm going full steam ahead. So the bearded
Yeah.
dragons you sold eventually, or you kept them?
Well, we had the beardies for a while because at the time I still owned my gym. And so this was just like something very small. It was not a business. It was just like I enjoyed it. And we would always go shopping at this Scales and Tails store. And I would always spend like, I'm not even kidding you, like $100 a week to feed these bearded dragons. And I'm just like,
Oh yeah.
this is, they're so expensive. And then flash forward 2020, COVID hits and my gym closes down. And it's like, no one can come in, you know, scariest time for business owners. Yet I can still go buy my bearded dragon, these roaches. And my like business mind started, and I was just kind of like almost frustrated that I could go shop for my bearded dragon, but like people weren't allowed into my gym. It was just like this weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
So my like business mind started turning, and about halfway, or rather, yeah, it was like summer of, no, actually, you know what? I'm even nuttier than I thought. I saw that kind of business idea, and I freaking opened that pet store while I still owned my gym. In my mind, I
Dang.
like to say that I sold my gym first because I could justify it, but no, I didn't. I didn't. I was that nuts.
So
I
so
opened my pet
you
store
had it.
in a pandemic while owning a gym that was also suffering in a pandemic because the pet store could be open. This is how
Yeah.
psychotic I am. Traumatic brain injury. This is what it does to you.
Yeah.
So the pet store opened in April of 2020. I sold the gym in October 2020. So there was like a 5-month overlap where I had both. And then once I sold the gym, I was full-time in the pet store. And that's when I owned the storefront for, let's see, until 2024 is when I
Yeah.
closed the storefront and we started doing everything online. So I had a period of time where like I was running my storefront and breeding geckos in the background, and my geckos were always at home. I never had them in
And
the
yeah.
store as far as breeders and stuff. I had all my monitors in the store for a period of time, and then we had moved them all to our outbuilding when I closed the storefront. So it's just been like a crazy transition over the last 6-7
So
years with
and
how
and
we've
now you're gonna do cows.
Oh yeah, miniature cows. That's where I'm headed. John from Pangea, like he swears cows are the next thing, and he's like, "Oh, I really want to get involved. I love these cows." And I'm like, "Do you have a farm?" I'm like, "Do you want to send me money? I'll buy some cows for you, John, and I'll take care of them."
Yeah. But yeah, cows are cool. Not as cool as geckos though. Not as cool as these geckos that won uh the gold standard. And I wanted to ask you about them. So so two of the geckos that won are actually Mac bred to bee's knees. And I wanted to ask you about their lineage. Obviously, Mac has a massive head, and you produced Mac, and then you told me bee's knees is from Pangea, right?
Yeah, so I bought Bee's Knees actually from, I never know how to say her business name. It's like
Yeah,
uh you know,
Geckoisis or something like that.
yeah, something like that. She
Yeah,
This was at the time when like all I wanted was like ready to breed females or like proven females. And so I bought Bee's Knees from her, and I'm assuming based off of my 5 years with Bee's Knees that she was already probably like had some age on her because she passed away last year. No,
Mm,
yeah, last year she passed away. Which was like it definitely had to been old age because it was kind of like a slower process, unfortunately.
yeah.
And she was retired last year. These girls that you have in your possession was her last season breeding. So so yeah, Pangea is who produced her, and I don't remember 100% for sure, but I think she came from like their Triple X project,
Mm.
um, or had
Yeah,
like
she's
some
an
veg.
extreme.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
She's
but
an extreme. She's an extreme Harley for sure.
yeah,
Pangea
and
has
I
a
love people
has so
having
many
their baby.
geckos. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
so
and tell me about Mac. So who are the parents of Mac and what is like tell me about that lineage.
yeah, so Mac's dad is the very first lily white I ever bought, which now with lily prices, I'm like, people feel like I feel like telling people when they're like $500 for a lily. I want to be like, yes, $500 for this really nice lily, because when I bought Mac's dad Aladdin, he was like $5,000, which still is not much compared
Ease.
to Morris. Yeah, and that was in 2019, I
Where
think,
did you get him from?
from Miles. But
Oh,
he
okay.
but Aladdin was produced by Lily Exotics and had been imported.
I got you.
Yes. So, and he was a red base. He's still alive and still breeding with some good friends of mine here locally, Scaly Serotonin. And he's there with them until he retires. And then when I sold him to them, like we had a deal, like when he retires, he gets to come back to me because Matt kind of like started everything for me as far as like my reds and um he just or not Mac, I'm sorry, Aladdin.
Aladdin,
Um
yeah.
he was kind of like my baseline animal for it's honestly that gecko is why I fell in love with crested geckos because I had never seen something so beautiful in my life. And he's a gorgeous red base lily white. And yes, he has great structure. Is it like max structure? No. Um, but he does have really, really good structure. And so Aladdin, I have a lot of animals whose great great granddad was Aladdin now. So I have to be really mindful in my red project, especially for outcrossing, just because I love that animal so much. And for the first 4 year, 3 to 4 years of breeding, like every nice animal I produced, I held back, and especially when I was doing like the soft scale research. So now I'm to the point where I'm like trying to make sure things aren't related. But then Mac's mom, Nala, came from Anthony Caponetto, and she's where the structure comes from. I mean, that animal had the biggest, baddest, fattest head you ever saw, and
Yeah.
she was awesome. She was a bicolor, but like I would say like kind of Halloween. Like she had dark base and like but a lot of orange pattern. But she's where the structure came from, in my opinion. Like she held it because Mac, Romeo, Monster. These are three brothers from that mom from Nala,
From that
and then
pair?
and then a fourth one from um, went to Scaly Serotonin with Aladdin. So, and Nala, when I originally moved back in 2021, actually passed away unexpectedly. Here I am talking about the two geckos who's like died in my care on a podcast, but Nala, she got egg bound. That was my first experience with that.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. I mean, I was distraught, and didn't even have a clue at that point what potential that animal brought into my collection. But I'm so thankful that I kept the 4 babies that I got from her and from Aladdin because they've been such huge pieces of my current collection, especially when it comes to structure. And
Yeah.
I kept them all. I have all of them. So that
Yeah,
was,
that's
I guess that's kind of Mac's story for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, he has a really, really wide head. And, on lily whites, even to this day, lily whites have been around for some time now, but even to this day, it's not common to see a lily white with a very wide head structure. So it's nice to see that Mac and what Mac produces, like those two girls that won the championships, have very nice head structure. And,
Yeah.
you know, as, as you have seen with Nala and then Mac and now these girls, like it gets passed down pretty easily. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
not something that's super hard to pass down, but at the same time, there are some animals that for whatever reason pass down head structure better than others. Like
Mhm.
I have geckos that I could just look at the gecko, like the offspring, and I could tell by the head structure, oh yeah, that's an offspring from that animal. And I'm sure
Mhm.
that's how you probably feel about Mac and his offspring too.
Yeah, I don't breed like in groups or anything, but so Monster and Romeo, the other two brothers that I have, Romeo, he always produces really nice structured animals, but not like Mac. And his structure is really great, but it's not Mac. But Monster almost has like even more to him than Mac. He's just not a lily. And those two and or three boys, every single one of their babies, 100% of the time, have fat heads, beautiful dorsal. They're just well built animals, and
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of people on my Instagram who are like, when are you going to release Mac babies? When are you going to release Mac babies? And I'm like, when I decide to not keep all of Mac's babies,
Yeah.
because they're so just, they're, you've now seen them in person, but they are significantly different than a lot of the other stuff that I'm producing as far as head structure. And most of my animals now have really, really great head structure because that's a huge priority of mine. But there's just something about his lines or his lineage specifically where it kind of like is like, wow, that's different. And it's consistent. Like every I showed you a picture of one of those girls' sisters, Bumblebee, who's with Dan
Yeah.
now at Gecko Harmony and having her first breeding season. And he's sending me pictures of these hatchlings who have, I mean, these triangular fat heads right out of the egg. And that's from one of these girls' sisters. So, you know, this line specifically, I can guarantee will continue bringing nicely structured animals. And you saw Bee's
Yeah.
knees, her structure. Eh,
Yeah. It's yeah. Yeah, that's awesome because well that's the reason why we wanted to do what we're gonna do with the leucistic crested gecko. And for those of you that don't know, I mean nobody really knows, but the Nicoletta and I are teaming up to do a like a breeder loan with Max lineage with these two females that actually won and breed them to a leucistic crested gecko and try to get better structure on the het leucistics and eventually maybe produce a fully leucistic animal with a nice crown head. That would be ideal. I think that gene in particular suppresses the head structure and scalation a little bit, but crazier things have been done and I think we may be able to do it. So it's going to be exciting to do all that. Now I wanted to ask you about Chip because I knew, the lineage on these girls, but I don't think I know the lineage on Chip and where that stems out from. So do you want to tell us about
yeah.
that?
So Fleck, who's Chip's dad, I purchased from Cold Blooded here locally. They actually got out of Cresties and Gargs and they sold their entire collection to me. And so I got a lot of really nice Dalmatians out of that. And then some other animals
I-
that I used, but sorry,
Is
what were
that
you
the
gonna
same
ask?
people that sold you your first geckos?
Yeah, yeah, isn't that cool?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's funny.
it was after I'd opened the pet store and I re-met up with them at an expo as like a vendor through the pet store. And
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta get more of your animals. What do you have? And they were like, we love our Cresties, but like honestly, like we're really just focusing on the ball python. So we're gonna sell our collection. And I was like, okay. So yeah, same people that I bought my very first geckos from, I bought their collection. And Fleck, Chip's dad, was in their collection.
Hmm.
And I asked them, they didn't have a lot of like lineage on their animals when I bought the
Hmm.
collection, but I believe that Fleck actually came from some of Tristan's animals.
Okay.
So at Gecko Junkie. And so that's all the information I have on Fleck. And Fleck was awesome. I sold Fleck because I kept back like 18 of his sons. And which, again, I have a problem with keeping things, but Fleck went to, oh my goodness, I can't remember the gal's name. I think her business name is like Third Coast Geckos or something. I don't know if she still has Fleck or not, but he was awesome. Like, he had some really great oil spots. And then Carmela was a really awesome female that I bought when, breeding female Dalmatians were like almost $3,000 a piece, of course, from Pangea. And and I did want to know where Fleck came from because Pangea produces a lot of the nicer Dalmatians. Obviously, there's some other breeders who do as well, but I'm sure Tristan got some of his from Pangea or from Brian, or I don't know.
So Pangea started producing really nice Dalmatians when they imported a lot of the best Dalmatians were imports from Lily Exotics, the same people that produce the Lily Whites. I got
Oh,
some really
interesting.
nice yeah, I got some really nice Super Dalmatians from them. And then one of Pangea's most famous lines of Dalmatians, well, I think it's honestly like the only line that people know of their Dalmatians, is the Damn Daniel.
Yeah.
Damn Daniel is a really, really nice Super Dalmatian that's a yellow animal, a yellow base. And that animal came from Lily Exotics. So
Okay.
I was curious to know a little bit more about the lineage of Chip because I wanted to know if it was if it traced back to Lily Exotics and that those animals. But it's hard to say because obviously Pangea produces so many geckos. So unless they told you for sure it came from Damn Daniel line, I wouldn't assume it, but it
Well,
could
at
be
the
because it's the
time,
yellow.
yeah, at the time, I think I would have remembered if I bought a Damn Daniel because lined animal from them. I don't think that she was marked from Damn Daniel lines specifically on the listing, but I bought like 6 at one time. So I can't really say that 100% Carmela didn't come from that. I know
Mm,
Fleck came from Cold Blooded and before, and I think Cold Blooded produced Fleck, but I think Fleck's extended lineage was something from Tristan because I remember trying to
mm,
track that back. And then
yeah,
obviously Tristan doesn't do anything with lineage, so I wasn't able
yeah,
to really trace Fleck back too far. And I've had kind of that experience. I think when you get excited and you get into the hobby, you just start buying things. And yes, lineage is important, but not all the breeders keep lineage. So you get, a little bit of information here. So when I had Chip and his brothers that I kept back, I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of like where, for me, where like Chip's lineage will start from and like figuring it out from here because I knew both of his parents and I had limited information on them. So, unfortunately, but I did invest in some animals from Donna at Crimson for
mm-hmm,
Chip this last year because it is so hard to find nice yellow Dalmatians locally. Like, here's a little sales pitch, my little spiel. Like, I need some females for Chip and his brother Box of Rocks because I am really struggling to find nice stuff that's worthy of them that doesn't have some kind of direct relation to them. As far as like trying to stay away from like Pangea's lines a little bit, but yeah, so I imported a couple animals from Donna. They don't have near the structure that Chip has, so I'm hoping he will push that into them. But they have
yeah,
beautiful yellow face, big spots. My problem too is that I kept so many of Chip's sisters. Like, I actually just sold a huge group of my yellow Dal females because they're all related to Chip and Box of Rocks. And
yeah.
it's kind of like my yellow Dalmatian project has been kind of this last year and a half, I guess,
Slower.
not really on the back burner, but kind of like I did buy a nice male from Donna as well that I bred into some of those sisters and got some eggs for this season. But I'm kind of starting, I feel like I'm starting a little bit from scratch now.
I got you.
Yeah, but I almost put a deposit on that, or I mean, bought that dust bunny from Mercury. Have you seen that animal?
It's a male?
It's a female.
No, I didn't see it. I saw they I don't know. I'll look at it later. I think I saw you even reposted one of their
I
pictures,
think
right?
that one was a male that I reposted,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
yeah,
the female looks very similar to that. And so
yeah.
I've even like messaged Megan with MPs, and I've messaged Tara and like, what do you got for, well structured yellow dowels? And they're like, nothing I want to
Yeah, it's
sell,
hard.
nothing I want to sell. I'm like,
It's
okay.
it's hard to find well-structured DAOs. So you got to kind of make them, you know?
Yeah,
You got to make
exactly. And
them.
then have them all related to each other. I'm like,
Yeah,
dang it.
well, yeah, you might just have to
I
outcross
know.
them and,
Yes,
but
it has not been like my forefront project for the last 3 years personally.
so,
It's kind of been a little bit of like a side thing.
well, maybe you want to put it in one of your forefront projects now that he's
Now,
gaining
freaking Chip.
popularity.
That's what I
I mean,
told you. I
he's
was like, I guess I'm gonna have to buy him some new females.
yeah, yeah, you should. I mean, he's an awesome gecko, and
And his
Dalmatians,
kids
there's no
are
shortage of his what?
his kids are unreal
Oh
every
yeah,
time.
I
And
bet.
his brother Box Rocks too, which I might put him in a show, the next gold standard, just to get him out there because
Do you
he's
think
like,
Box of Rocks is better than Chip, or Chip is better?
I think, okay, so Box of Rocks is pale base with hardly any pattern and much, like, in my opinion, cleaner than Chip from a color
Mm,
standpoint. I
yeah,
think Chip still has him beat on head structure.
yeah.
I'm I'm encouraged that Box of Rocks' tail is like really great because I was a little bit worried with Chip that there might be something like along the lineage, but he's really the only one that has a little bit of a tail. Like, um, that he just, since he was a baby, he's slept in a like curled up position. So, his tail wraps this way. So he's got tiny little stuff going on with his hips, but it's never passed on to anything. So,
No, that's purely cosmetic.
yeah,
My theory on it is that when geckos, because in the wild, 99% of geckos are tailless adults. By the time the gecko gets to adulthood, they lose their tail. They never develop the need to have a really strong pelvic structure that, those two bones that
yeah,
hold kind of like that tail. So it's not as, over time, especially in the beginning when we were feeding baby food and all this stuff, you would see a lot of floppy tail. So a lot of geckos will develop a slight like, tilt to the base of the tail. It is cosmetic, but I mean, I have definitely seen a big improvement over the years of geckos that don't get floppy tail anymore. And people would say, if you add a lot of stuff in their enclosure for them not to sleep upside down, you kind of like mitigate that. Also, if you're obviously feeding the proper diet, I think it all goes into it. But I think also with time, as people start breeding for stronger tails and tail bases, which it's something that not a lot of people even think about, but it's something that I'm starting to look at. When I'm looking at breeders, I'm like, if this has a weak tail base where I see like, a little tilt or like a curvature, right in the tail base, I'm like, I'm definitely not breeding that to something else that has the same thing. But if I am gonna breed it, I'll breed it to something with a strong tail base that looks perfect and it's straight, you know. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting because I've seen it improve so much. I can't even tell you. Like from when I started, like every other gecko, I feel like had floppy tail syndrome. But
yeah.
now it's like. it's hard to see it on geckos. You don't see it very often.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and you have
but
some
Chip has the slightest like tilt on one side, but honestly and it's one of those reasons why I want to have all the geckos in person, because in pictures you don't even notice.
no, no.
Um
And honestly, you'd
you
have to know
don't.
you'd have to know your stuff to even notice it on him. You know,
Yeah.
it's not super obvious at all. But the rest of him is solid, and since he was a
Yeah.
baby, and that's the thing too with floppy tail. I think a lot of people, in my opinion, and this is probably kind of a controversial topic for some, but I think that the floppy tail is a little bit overplayed as far as like how I think a lot of people are like intimidated by it or like worried that it's
Yeah.
going to directly affect their animal. But in my experience, there are certain animals, like these are animals, you can put as much foliage and as much stuff as you want into their cage, but they're still going to find their spot on the bottom to curl up funkily and sleep weird. Or they're still going to find the one area that isn't covered to be on the side and let their tail
Upside
flop,
down.
and
Yeah.
it's like, when it gets concerning is when you do start to see it playing a part in the
The
hips and like
babies.
and the babies and
Oh.
no, like the actual hip structure that could keep them
Oh.
from laying well. I mean, males, if one of my
Look,
males gets a tail, I'm like, whatever. uh but the females,
I've never, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say
oh,
this
you're
before I
good.
forget. I've seen people over the years tell other people, if the gecko has floppy tail, just force drop it, like pinch the tail so it drops the tail. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Because one, I've had a lot of freaking geckos, a lot of females with floppy tail, and they've never had issues, and pretty severe cases of floppy tail too. I've never ever had an egg binding issue from that. So the theory that that happens, I don't know where it came from, because I talked to a lot of breeders. I've been around and I've never heard of that like actually happening.
Like
And
actually like pinching the tail off, you mean?
no, 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 no. That I've never heard of the floppy tail or the tilt in the that's caused on the pelvic bones,
Yeah.
causing an issue with the eggs and the
Oh, I
females
got
laying
you.
eggs. I
Yeah,
hear, and
absolutely.
I've seen people on videos, and I hear all the time people saying, "Yeah, make the gecko drop its tail, like force drop it." I'm like, "Why the hell are you gonna do that? Like that's dumb." But
So I
so I
think
just wanted
I
to
think
say that.
yeah, well, I think with that, I think personally that specific topic is that because there is a little bit less information, in my opinion, from breeders that have been doing it for a while, as far as how floppy tail really truly does or does not affect your animal. I think the reason that breeders, and I'm just putting this out there as an observation, I don't know for a fact, but I think when you have an animal that has floppy tail, or you have an animal that has the beginnings of floppy tail, or you have an animal with what I call lazy tail, it's like the in between. It's like it's not floppy yet, but
There
the
you go,
muscle
making up names again. There
lazy
you go,
tail,
making up names.
lazy tail. So I tell people at expos, I'm like, this little one has a lazy tail. Like, I can't guarantee that he won't have floppy tail because I've noticed that he doesn't really like to use it. And that's, it always needs to be disclosed. But because there's this like, ooh, scary floppy tail, it's harder to sell an animal that has floppy tail. It's harder to, ensure and make someone feel comfortable that that animal is producing well or whatever it is. And so I think it's
Well,
likely that
that's
pinch tail is just to keep it from essentially being an issue, where
yeah.
I think you always have to disclose those things with people when you're talking about animals. Every time I see something with an animal, I have another thing that has popped up a couple times in my collection, and it's like I've had like 3 or 4 offspring from Scar, who's another like staple in my collection, that have like a slight overbite.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that popping up, not specifically from him, but I've seen it popped up. I've seen it pop out from like one of his offspring. And I'm watching it really closely because again, whether that's genetic, I'm assuming that that's kind of thought to be genetic or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You can't sell an animal that has an overbite to somebody without disclosing it, even if it's like
Right.
so insignificant that only you or I would notice if you're staring right at that animal's mouth,
Yeah.
And so I think it just comes down to like breeding ethics and, you know,
Yeah.
but again,
No,
yeah,
I
I mean, if
agree.
it has a floppy tail, it's definitely less aesthetically pleasing to the eye to see your gecko with a lazy tail that just like flops.
Yeah.
So, from a financial standpoint, I'm sure that's why people just pinch them right off because they don't even want to deal with it. Because you can tell pretty
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, you can. I think I see it could be that. It could be that. I think some bigger breeders might do that. I think it's also just ignorance, and because I also see a lot of pet people, like people that just have a pet that do that. Like
Okay.
there's a really viral video on YouTube that of like it's like a whole family, like a kid or like a mom and her kids or something. I don't remember, but they're force dropping it, and then I did a reaction video to it, like, well, don't do this, like, whatever. But I think it's a lot of that people just go on Reddit or Facebook forums, and they see some random fucking Facebook mutant tell them that, you gotta make the tail drop because it's bad for them, it could affect its life, whatever.
Yeah,
Anyways,
exactly. Misinformation.
um, yeah, there you go. Misinformation. Now, so you just told me that the Dalmatian project's kind of like because of the lack of females that you don't have right now, or at least that you want to put to chip, it's kind of like taking a back burner. What would you say are your like top three projects that you're working with right now? Uh, like that you're most
Yeah.
excited about?
So this past year, actually, partially because I invested in cows, I have sold a lot more animals this year than I ever have. And it was time because I had held so many animals back from this, the soft scale research and the scatter scale thing,
Yeah,
that had all grown up, got the data that I needed. And so this year has been like a huge year of purging things. I do feel like I'm kind of to a point now where I really do only have a few projects that I'm focused on specifically. For the Dalmatians, my red Dalmatians, my red spots,
right. Yeah.
and my rainbow spots. That's a pretty darn big project right now. I know Dan calls them rainbow spots, so I'm like confetti, Mardi Gras, rainbow, pixie dust. I don't know, the
Wait,
spotted
so
ones that
so
have
what's the
multicolored
so what's
spots.
the yeah, what's the rainbow spots? Explain it for those of you, so those that don't know.
I mean, essentially, it's just like my way or Dan's way of saying like multicolored spots. Like I say multicolored spots because
Yeah,
truly that's really what it is. It's like it's black spots,
red,
red spots, green
black.
spots, orange, anything that I can get into
Yeah.
these red-based
Uh,
animals, which now I'm working on getting into yellow-based animals. So, and lilies, like that's another thing is like these really spotty phantom lilies that have tons of red spots and black spots and all the things. So I would say like the multicolored spots, I'm a little bit more mentally and physically invested in right now with my collection. I had some really amazing animals that I've produced in the last 3 years that are like starting to breed. I've done a lot better job with that project, not holding back so many related animals and bringing in other stuff
New
from the
blood.
beginning. I kind of learned my lesson with the yellow dowels because I hit that stalemate this last year and a half. So I would say that is definitely one of my forefront projects. I also just love that, like I love dowels. I think they're awesome. Um, and when you have all the different colored spots, I'm like, oh, those are crazy. They're really cool. And then second to that is, I mean, I'm always gonna have lily stuff going on. And lilies are my favorite morph. They will always be my favorite morph. And I will have too many lilies till the day that I die because I love them. So working them into like
Yeah.
everything basically. Um, my red lilies tend to be the most popular. Like that project, the reds specifically, are the ones that
Yeah.
people are same with like the really well structured ones. I bought my first cap from Janine this year. He's too small to breed. So I'm going to finally produce some fraps. And then I have this year my first sable who's been breeding. And so getting like those two genes into the lily. I know I'm behind the 8-ball, you know, by quite a bit, but structure's always been a huge thing for me. So now that I have enough lilies that have structure dialed.
Janine's caps
Sorry, say that again.
Janine's caps tend to have better structure than the RBM or RCK ones.
That's why, that's why I got one from Janine, and I told her, I'm like, not getting anything from anyone but you. So what do you have for me? And she's like, oh, I got this nice one. And so he's growing now. He's not ready to breed, but he will be hopefully next season, or at least middle of the year next year. So I'm going to start working with some of these like fun genes into the lily stuff now that I have like what I would think is like basically every lily I have in my breeding program has substantially good structure. So with lilies there, and then I have what I call my watercolor project, and that is specific to like eye color mostly, and directly working through getting these animals with these vibrant colors that are almost like muted in a sense. Like if you're dyeing an Easter egg and you just keep like stacking colors. Yeah, pastel, watercolor. I called it pastel originally, and then someone was like, all I can think of is the ball python gene that like pastel. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do something different. But anyways, the only way I can describe it is like you take an Easter egg, you dip it once, you get this color.
I think that's a really good. I think that's a good way to describe it, because it looks kind of like
that's really the only way, like in my mind. And it's like you have all of these different color variations that you know are giving off different spectrums of light, and then you couple that with the eye color. Now it goes back to this conversation of like what some people would say is hypo. You know, I have my own opinion on how hypo is defined and all of that, and none of that actually matters. It's just the point of that project is really important to me. And that specific project has a lot to do with my scatter scale stuff. And almost is primarily 100% homo scatter for that watercolor project at this point now. So
you
trying to figure out
you
how
think that's the key. Sorry to interrupt you. But you think the scatter scale is the key to what is happening with that like watercolor project, that kind of like pastel-y look that we're talking about?
I do, and I think that it also has something to do with the eye color. And
yeah,
you know, which variation of eye color I can get. So it's really now I'm just selectively breeding to keep making these purple blue-eyed animals that have this like crazy pastel-y, almost like you took watercolor paints and just like started painting them on top of each other, because you can't say it's a tricolor because you've got 3 different shades of this color lined with your base color that has like 2 different shades. Like I should send you some example pictures for you to put up here of some of my animals I'm talking about, because it's so hard, like even on camera to even see it, but it's, you know, that's probably my favorite project. And that's been a long time coming of isolating things. And it's so hard to find animals to bring in right now from that project. Like I've looked at a few. I brought Zarlox in from CJ this year to try and bring into that project a little bit, because my dream goal is to have that pastel-y look with the purple blue eyes and bright white. So whether or not I can get there, I don't know, but that's where I'm heading. So I mean, I think that, you know, I brought in some of Emily's lines. I brought in some stuff from Fireside. I brought in Zarlox, some of these like nice higher white things to see if I can. Now Zarlox looked scatter scale to me. I haven't proven him out at all. I have his first offspring now with a homo female. So we'll see if he pans out to actually be.
But Zarlox under the microscope is not scatter scale?
No, he looks scatter scale under the microscope. So that's why I'm trying to see if I can prove that out. Because
Okay, well,
I do think that there's more scatter scale out there because people just don't realize, and I think it's a key to a lot of nice animals. I don't think it's just the key to the watercolor stuff and the eye color stuff. I think that's just selective breeding with that specific gene. But I know for a fact some of the nicest tricolors with the brightest whites are homozygous scatter scale,
yeah, I was
and
talking
it's
to
really
Kevin.
freaking cool.
I was talking to Kevin, Kevin Moody, a couple weeks back, and he was mentioning that I think it's Bigfoot or I think it's Bigfoot that he said was scatter scale or or he's het scatter scale or
I
something, and
can't
that's what he was.
I can't remember if it was Bigfoot or if it was one of his females that was homo, but I have a female from him that is Bigfoot lines that is homo scatter, and she was bred to a homo scatter male of mine this year. This was her first season. Scar. I still prove everything out. That's just how I do it because I need to for myself see the results continue.
Yeah.
It's only been a few years that we've had consistent results, and so for me, I'm really watching it closely. Um, and every one of those animals will be grown out for me to see if they're scatter. I did the same thing with a gecko, two geckos I got actually. One of the geckos I got from Fringe Morphs, but was produced by Brian Butler, a pink animal named Blot,
Hmm.
which she's got all kinds of babies floating around. She was paired with Scar last year, who's one of my homo males, and her offspring all proved out 100% homo for the ones that I got. She's a crappy layer, but for the 3 babies I got from her, good. Not a great pool. But I have gotten some more eggs from her this year, so hopefully those will prove out too. But I'm holding these babies till 20 or 30 grams, so I can make sure that I have the consistent results. And Blot, I knew instantly I saw her. I said this is scatter scale. Same with Fringe's Eden, who I have. Which is one of his pink animals. I'm like, this is scatter scale. So I started talking to Thor about it, and we dug through his collection, and he's like, oh my gosh, like fully on board. We talked about pinks at length, specific to the scatter scale theory. And one of his original animals where the pinks came from was an AC animal that was a phantom, and I guarantee you was scatter scale. You could see it on her.
So
So it's
you think sorry, look, I wanna make something
oh,
clear.
go
You think the scatter scale is responsible for the hypo look in these geckos?
ahead.
Like
Yes,
the
I do.
okay.
But I
Because when we're
also
talking
I
you
also
also what?
think though that scatter scale gene specifically is what gives the geckos the ability to have these like very vibrant I guess what's the word contrast as well.
Yeah.
Because like you know I think it is of allowing for more light to come through the scales, so you're getting these like brighter, more vibrant. Now the hypo thing, I think that is actually that specific look for hypo actually comes down to like base color combinations in my personal opinion, and that's what Dan and I've been working through with the kaleidoscope. Is like if you look at all the different ways that the colors can morph together,
In
that
turn.
that hypo look could potentially be more to do with selectively breeding for specific base colors and pulling those base colors to one end of the spectrum rather than the actual scatter scale. But I think scatter scale and can be responsible for a lot of the like really vibrant stuff that we see that kind of is like whoa. And I've had people say
Okay.
that they're like your animals are crazy bright, like why are they so bright compared to other animals?
You're like, because I use Photoshop.
Yeah, I wish. Thank God, though, we don't have to Photoshop. I took some pictures of some cows with a family the other day. I'm like Photoshopping all these. I'm like, could you imagine listing geckos if you had to Photoshop every single one?
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
I just take
Um,
videos.
so okay, so when you said that Zarlox, so he's showing to be scatter scale, but shouldn't you know right away by looking at it under the microscope? if it's a scatter scale or not?
Yeah, I mean, yes, in theory, yes, but because I'm a scientific brain and still nobody really wants to listen to my theory and Dan's theory on this specific gene, there's
I
been a lot
listen
of
to it. I think I agree
you're
with
great.
you on it.
You're wonderful. There is a solid group of people who, but the thing is like at the end of the day, it only matters to the people who care to utilize it and to learn about it. And for
Yeah.
me, every generation that I'm using this specific gene that I swear to you, I gave years of my life to like obsessing over, like I am going to see it through for much longer than 3 years. Like every scatter pairing, I'm going to prove it out. I don't want to have in my mind any shadow of a doubt of I can look at this animal and say, yes, that's scatter scale. Now, I look at this stuff all the time. To somebody who's
Yeah.
never looked at it before, to them, they might be like, what the hell? Like, how do you know? Like, even um, CJ from Gecko Barracks, he's like, what the hell are you talking about? I was like, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to prove it out and then we're going to see what happens. Because it really doesn't matter if it doesn't matter to you, the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he didn't know, he has no clue, and he's not looking at his geckos under a microscope. So for me, it was a slam dunk because I could get that animal that already has that homozygous double copy of that gene into my collection. That's a big win for me,
And did you
and
when you saw Zarlox, did you suspect it before you looked at him under a microscope?
oh yeah, I have an employee, Gabby from Other World Gecko. She's amazing. I opened that box and you can ask her. I jumped up and down. I was like, no freaking way. And she's like, what? I was like, I think he's scattered. And she's like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, no, I like 100% think he's scattered. And of course I looked and I was like jumping up and down. And I'll tell you the reason why I thought he was scattered before I got him, which is why when I was talking to CJ about taking Zarlox on, I said, this is what I see in Zarlox. I want to confirm it if you're willing to like work with me for this year. And it's exactly what I'm talking about with those layering of colors. If you look at a picture of Zarlox, he's gorgeous, but he's got 3 or 4 different shades of color going on in his pattern. It's I wish, well, you can put up a picture of Zarlux
Yeah, I'm
when
gonna be
you,
putting on picture.
but it's like what I said, it's that Easter egg layering of all these different colors. And when I saw that on him and I got that opportunity, I was praying that he came to me and that I was already like instant, because I thought, I was going to do it regardless because I still saw something different in his animal, and that, how consistent that animal produces like the nicest stuff, like pretty much pair him with anything and it's nice. So I was really excited to have that opportunity, and I got a handful of girls laying from him this year. So again, then there's always room for error, like I could have seen something that maybe isn't correct, or maybe I just got too excited, So I
Yeah.
just, for my own peace of mind and for that actual like research side of it, because that's what I geek out over, and is, I need to have results and I want to see them, because if I need to at any point step back and be like, what am I missing? Because I thought that for a while with the Lily, until I finally struck gold on producing and consistently producing these homozygous version of the Lily, that maybe this gene like gets erased by a specific pattern or another specific gene. Like I still haven't worked through that, because I know a lot of people will say that the caps have similar spacing in their scales, but it's like, is that the same thing or is it different? I don't know, because I've never brought them into my collection to mess around with it. I'm still focusing on the initial stuff still. Like I still have years to make sure that I got that figured out. But
Yeah.
that, that gene, it's my favorite. That's,
Yeah. It's
I,
interesting.
you know,
The I think there's sometimes people like you come along that have like a certain eye for something, and it proves out to be correct. I know that like that lily white male I have from you, I've been hatching out babies, and this is the first season that I put him to a couple homozygous scatter scale. And I don't know if it's like bias, like that's already set in my brain, but when I look at the babies, I'll be looking through babies and then I'll open up a tub and I see the babies and I'm like, are these from that male? And then I've checked the tag and they are. So I don't know, but I can't describe, I can't put it into words what I'm seeing. Like, like a
Yeah.
lily white, you could say, well, this cream is, looks this way, or a tangerine, you say, well, this is a different type of orange or whatever. But with these, I'm like, I just want to say they look cleaner. I don't know, but it's hard for me to describe, and I'm always looking
Yeah.
to find the way to describe it because if I make a
I
video
know
or
that's
I
the
try
hardest
to tell, yeah, if I try to tell somebody about it, I'm like, I'm trying to tell them what I'm looking at and I can't on these.
Well, I think the other hard part is that you're working and isolating that gene. For somebody who has never like thought about it, brought it into their collection to see how it works consistently, they're not going to see what you're seeing because they have a much wider pool of animals to be like, yeah, it looks like this or it looks like this. But when you have it next to other things and you know exactly what's going on, it's far easier to see like the difference. And the only thing I can describe it really is just like these multi-layered colors that just add so much vibrancy to whatever it is. It doesn't matter what pattern it is. It can happen in the
Yeah.
phantoms too. I have some seriously nice scatter phantoms that I'm just like, you're awesome, and they're different. But the other thing too is I really think that whether it's because this originally came from some of Caponetto animals for me to like dig into, but I do think that scatter scale also adds to structure of the animals. So that I can't like prove indecisively, but I can, in my mind it does. But maybe that's because I'm also selectively breeding for that
I
regardless.
think
So it's hard to say if it does or not.
I think that's a selectively bred thing.
I
That
don't want to
just
give it too much credit.
yeah, I think AC naturally produces really big structured animals, and he always has, and he's like kind of like he's always done that, and he's developed it alongside every project that he has. So it's kind of like the cappuccinos thing. Like nobody cared about cappuccinos. um so they were wholesale geckos. So the guys that do wholesale in big numbers, they're just producing geckos. They don't care about structure, they don't care about anything. So that's why we see bad structure with cappuccinos. I don't think it's related to the cappuccino gene, but I think in a couple of years we'll see cappuccinos that rival, our pinstripes or our harlequins that have really nice head structure. And people will forget that cappuccinos once upon a time didn't have good head structure.
Right.
But it's interesting, and I think when people think of you, they think of that soft scale and that scatter scale kind of like research that you and Dan did. But now I think a lot of people are starting to notice all the structure that your animals bring to the table also, which is great. Um, and I mean, I see them in person here, so it's really cool to see. And I was curious, what out of your collection? I know you're probably gonna say Mac, but what are some of your favorite structured animals out of your collection? Like, I know Mac has to be one, right? Which are some others?
Yeah, so Mac 1000%. I don't know if I've shown you Elsa and Anna, but they came out of Ghost and Sugar, and Ghost has a noggin. And I still have Ghost. Ghost isn't really breeding much because I have enough of his kids that have like kind of taken over his spot. I'll send you one of his kids, Picasso, who's like one of my favorite animals that I've ever produced. But Elsa and Anna, currently breeding, I'll say. Elsa and Anna, all of Mac's kids and Mac's lines, Monsters kids and Monsters lines, which is related to Mac. Um, I'm trying to think what other of my animals have like the nicest structure. My male Doc, he's a phantom with killer head structure.
Yeah.
And then everybody else has really nice structure. I mean, this year will be the first year that I actually like intentionally went through gecko by gecko and let go of like I love this gecko. It's beautiful. It has a shitty head. Like, what am I gonna do? And I like have physically like it has been like tears, like all of my closest like gecko friends, like I'm sending pictures, like, how do I let this go? Oh my gosh, like this is gonna kill me. Like, but it's not
Yeah.
furthering my collection in the direction I want it to go. And these are animals that are really nice animals. They're just not to the standard that I want to continue carrying on forward. And so I've made some severe cuts, and I'm going to make even more at the end of this season to breeders, because I don't want to bring anything on that has poor structure unless it's bringing another gene or it's bringing something else to the table, because I'm at the point finally where like I don't have to do that. For a long time,
Right.
I didn't have the luxury, and now I can, to look at two lilies and be like, obviously you're staying, you're beautiful, but like you got to go. And that's hard for me because I'm a hoarder, but my
Yeah.
collection, it's gotta be quality over quantity. And this is like the first year that I've held myself to like hiring my standard, even though I love some of these animals who I've had for a long time.
Yeah, that's
And
what I tell. That's what I tell. So I have a membership like group that we have like monthly calls and stuff, and they want to further their breeding and their reptile business, and that's what I'm telling them. I'm like, more than ever now is when you have to be super, super picky and have a set standard, because there's so many breeders out there. So you want to make sure that every animal you breed, or close to every animal you breed, is going to be, a home run. And it could be
yeah,
hard because, just like you, I mean, I have animals that I'm the same way. I'm like, I've had this animal and some honestly I just keep, and I'm like, I won't breed them again, but I can't sell this animal. I'll just have it in my collection. So I have animals that I'm like, dude, like this animal has produced so many amazing animals. The structure's not what I want, or maybe the color or the pattern's not what I want to be producing. But I'm like, there's no way I could like I could sell this animal. But if you're a smaller breeder, you kind of have to make the hard decision to be like, well, there's so much time in a day, there's so much time I could dedicate to my animals. And if I want to stick out in a world of a million crested gecko breeders, I'm going to have to be strict with it. So that's a good
yeah,
point to keep. And I know structure is one of your like non-negotiables now, as you're saying. Are there any other non-negotiables that you have as far as like your collection, your breeders go, that a gecko must have if you're bringing it in or you're holding it back?
yeah. So it kind of depends on the morph specifically. I love, more than anything, I love white wall animals, and I love pinstripes. I have gotten away, or I'm working to get away from anything breeding that has, it sounds so cliche to like all the naysayers on spots, but I really am trying to make sure that none of my pinstripes and white walls have spots at all. It has been
Okay.
incredibly challenging because so many of my original stock years ago was Caponetto, and so many of his animals have spots. So
Yeah.
I've been selectively trying to breed away from that in those specific morphs. I don't work with a ton of Harleys. I have a few for some specific like pattern projects, but I tend to gravitate towards the white walls and the quads and the pins, for my like personal preference. So working on that kind of, now you have a spot. Sorry, but I can't keep you back to breed. And that's just because of where I'm at, to where I can say no to those animals now. It's never mattered to me before. I don't really care that much. But I've gotten so far from it that I'd like to just keep going in that direction, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
and then specific to my DAL projects, like I know everyone loves Tiger, and like all the base pattern like that. But I'm really trying to move out of any kind of tigering in any of my phantoms at all.
Damn,
Phantom
I'm the
gals,
opposite.
phantoms. I want
I want
like
like I
the
want more
cleanest.
pattern.
Okay, let's just trade. Let's just trade across, because I want like clean slate. Like in my mind, this is so bad, but like I see the phantom morph especially like the non-patterned phantom as like my clean slate, like my starting point for every project. And so
Yeah.
when I think of phantoms, I want them to be like a clean whiteboard that has nothing impairing like what we can, what potential this animal has. And I think
Yeah.
tigers are really cool. I've never brought a lot of it into my collection, but I've had a couple of things hatch out and I'm like, it's so cool, but like, that's not what I want. So I would say
Yeah.
trying to get as much tigering out of my collection. Cause even with the white walls and the pins and that, like any of that kind of like muddled pattern where it's kind of like, I call it a confused animal. It's like, do you
Yeah.
want to be a pinstripe? Do you want to be a Harley? What do you want to do? One side of you said quad, the other says Harley. Like, where are you
I
at?
hate that.
I'm like, I gotta
Yeah.
get the confused animals out of my collection. And I feel
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the tigering does play a role in that. So I would say those are the two big things. Now, granted, I love those animals in other people's collections. I look at some of those people who are selectively breeding for the tiger stuff, and I'm like, Jesus, that's a cool animal, but like it's just not
Yeah.
my focus. I don't have anything
Right. Yeah.
against.
And yeah, it just comes down to like we were saying, like you have to be laser focused on what you want to produce because the second, I mean, this is more for the newer breeders, but or like the smaller breeders, because the second you're like, I want a little bit of everything, you're gonna spread yourself too thin, you know. So, but yeah, it's I hear you 100%. You have to be laser focused, and even though you might think
Mhm.
that pattern Dal is cool, you're like, what I want to produce is a clean base, big spotted super Dal, whatever. So I hear you. I hear you.
Well, I think too, like, and I've kind of learned this just through like my breeding life, and it's actually translated into the cattle breeding stuff. I don't think my husband would have ever let me invest in cows if I didn't have the experience in the geckos that I did, because, genetic, like just having a genetic backbone in animal breeding is one, but the Highlands are 150 times easier, genetically speaking, than the crested geckos. Is that, we all get excited about everything. And I learned this the hard way. From the beginning, I was like, I'm going to have 15 different projects, but none of my projects were actually doing anything to write home about. And I saw this quote the other day and it was so spot on. It was like, do like specific to like what we do, like with breeding, is like breed what you love to look at. And eventually someone else will love to look at it too. And that hit me hard because I was like, when I got into this, like, to be
You started
completely honest, like
crying.
I started working. I was like, oh my God, it's so true. Okay, I need to sell more. I need
Standard
to get
still.
just no, but it's true. It's like, I think that it's hard when you're like trying to get into the hobby and you like everything. And it's like, if you don't like to look at it, for the love of God, please don't bring it into your collection, because you're doing yourself a disservice. And that's why it sounds horrible, but that's why it's taken me so long to bring a cap into my collection. I've never had an affinity for the cap gene. I've never looked at it and been like, I love it, even though people are doing great things with it. And I do, but I do really love fraps. I think fraps are
Yeah.
awesome. I think,
Yeah.
I look at a frap and I'm like, that there's something really cool and different about that animal. But the only way to get a frap is to have a cap. And so it took me forever. Like I've been talking to Janine for like 2 years, I feel like, before I'm like, okay, here we go.
She's
I
like,
think
for the
finally,
love of God, just buy one
no, well,
already.
I think when I finally was like, I'd done it probably like twice a year for the last 2 years. Like, okay, what really nice males do you have? And then I see them, I'm like, no, it's not the right time. And so this last time, I think when I was like, okay, I want him, she was like, wait, let me get you some more pictures. And I was like, nope, just take my money right now before I change my mind, because it's taken me a long time to bring a cap
Oh
into
my
my
gosh.
collection, because yeah, I'm such a baby. But so I think
That's
that
so
is
funny.
important. Quality over quantity, and like breed what you like to look at. Because when you open the drawers or your bins or your cages and you don't like to look at that animal, even if it's bringing you money, it's not bringing you joy. So
Yeah. So, okay, so I asked this to everybody, and I'm gonna ask you. You probably knew it was coming, but rate these in the level of importance, okay? Color, pattern, structure, and handleability. Which ones do you rank number one, and which one's number four?
color, pattern,
Structure.
structure. Okay.
or handleability?
Was it 4 or 5? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna
It's
pretend to
4.
not be. Oh, I think it was 5. I was missing the 5th one. Okay. That's tough. I think handleability might be number 1, mainly because I don't like to work with butthole geckos. And
You're
if
the
I have a
first
butthole.
ever to say that.
Well, I have a lot of people that buy geckos from me and they're like, it's so sweet. Like like it's so easy to handle and it's like calm and like again, my employee Gabby, we laugh about this all the time, but like if you're an a-hole, you're gone in my collection
Yeah.
because I don't want any of my breeders getting hurt. I had a male go after a female. He's one of the most beautiful geckos I've ever produced in my entire life. Went at her, not like I want to breed you, but like
Breathing.
full on I want to kill you. And
Yeah. He's out.
later, Gator, you got to be yeah, he's out. And so, and I had another gecko I brought in from somebody else. Same thing. It's a female. Every male I put in with her, she wants to murder him. I paid $1,500 for her. She's out of here. Like, so for me, that's important to me because I know that it's important to my consumers. Now, most
Yes.
breeders don't care much. But I do sell to a lot of people at expos and things that like they don't want to breed. They want a
Pet.
really beautiful pet, and
That's what I
so
tell. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, at the end
yeah.
of the
And it,
day, all these animals are pets, so they got to be nice.
well, and I'm sorry if that animal is still excuse my French, a hole. It ain't changing. There's no changing
Yeah.
that animal. Like some people
Yeah.
will like, oh, I bought this gecko from so and so. They said, I just got to handle it more and it'll get better. I'm like, how old's a gecko? They're like, I think he said it's about 2 years old. I'm like, yeah, fat chance. That gecko is an a-hole. And like at some point, you just call a spade, and they go make really great, beautiful displays for someone who, because there's people who don't care about handling their geckos. That's the
Right.
perfect. And I always mark the animals as like, if you want to do a beautiful bioactive and have something really pretty to look at, this one's your gecko because he is not
Yeah.
you and he doesn't like you. And then people will be like, oh, I love that. I don't really care about touching him. Oh, he's so pretty. And yeah, and they take him and build him a crazy bioactive. But I get rid of any jerks pretty quickly. I don't produce a lot of jerks anymore, though, I will say. It's funny. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely
It doesn't happen very
it's
often.
definitely inheritable.
Yeah.
Inheritable?
Yeah. Whatever. Inherit. Yeah.
Okay, so
Whatever. That's my word.
handleability 1, what's 2?
Ability. So that's just a pet peeve of mine. 2 is structure. The third one would be color. And then the last one would be pattern. If it doesn't have
Nice.
great color, but its pattern is on point, I don't care. It's not what I want.
Hmm.
And that's me personally.
Interesting. That's
Did
awesome because
I shock you with my answers?
well, no, no, I like it because most people, like everybody I've had on, I feel like we've all said it in the same exact order. I think
Oh,
everybody's
really?
like color patterns, yeah. So you're like
Oh,
a
that's
complete
funny.
switch up where everybody's last for sure has always been handleability, and that's your first. So it's interesting, and I always say this every single time. I'm like, yeah, they're meant to be pets. So that's why we look at it in the gold standard. It's like we want a gecko that's handleable, and people will say,
Oh,
"Well,
is that
how do you
in
expect
this? Is
it?"
that in the gold standard?
That's
I didn't
that's
realize that
one
was a
of
part of it.
yes,
That's awesome.
that's one of the 10 things we judge the gecko on. So if your gecko's a
Okay.
jerk or if your gecko's super skittish, it's gonna score low on that. And and a lot of people that are traditionally like just breeders would ask like why that, and I'm like, well, think about a dog show. Think about
Yeah.
anything. Like when you take a dog to a dog show, the dog has to be on its tip top behavior. If that
Yeah.
dog bites the handler or just goes off the stage or is acting crazy, that dog might be disqualified. I mean, we
That's
won't
so true.
disqualify your gecko, but it is important because at the end of the day, these we're breeding these for the pet trade.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to hear that for sure.
That's good. That's good to know. I didn't know that was like a thing on the. Maybe that's why Chip won. He's so
Chip, yeah,
chill.
no, all your geckos. I mean, I don't know if they all scored a 10 on the handleability. I don't remember, but they all scored high on it because I mean, I handle all your geckos and they're all super chill. And then I handle some
Yeah.
other geckos and I was like on edge. I'm like, because I'm like, if I lose this gecko, like I'll give you
Oh
like
yeah.
one of the pinstripe that won Chevron. He when I first got him and I was putting him away, he was a little spazzy, and I was like, dude, last thing I want is for this gecko to drop its tail or
Oh, I
something.
know. Oh, that's stressful.
And so I was nervous about that. And then when we were judging him, he was better, but not, but still a little crazy. So I was like, but yeah,
Some of
your
my
geckos
girls
were
out
good.
there like
Yeah, your geckos are chill.
this.
Okay, so
Especially
my next,
Bertha.
yeah, Bertha with that name too.
I
My
know.
next unoriginal question is, what do you like and what do you dislike about gold standard? What do you think can be done better? And what do what are your opinions on it? And
Yeah,
you're gonna
that's
be
I
harder
wish I
on me because you're my friend, so you could go ahead and lay it on
yes.
me.
Wish I would have had some time to prepare because I could have come with like some awesome feedback from you or for you. Okay,
Yeah.
what do I like about it? So for me, like when it comes to breeding, genetics in my mind are the reason why I breed the animals, and not saying specific like type of genetic. It could be polymorphic traits or specific like just the fact that you can look at these animals and produce different things with different combinations. Like that's what makes my brain go bananas over the projects. Why I invested in the Highland cows. It's the same thing. It's a play on genes to see what you get and be the
Yeah.
next person to figure out the next thing. And so from, a genetic standpoint, that to me, the only way that we can keep bettering our animals is to encourage people to be like-minded in a sense of recognizing that like we need to only be producing the best of the best. If you have a poor quality animal, it needs to be a pet because that's just going to continue evolving the hobby into a big melting pot of crap. And it's just like anything else. It's like we talk about puppy mills and this and that. And it's the same for me, the same idea of that. And so what I love about the gold standard is it a club? Is that we say gold standard club, gecko
Go,
club?
go,
Um,
Gold Standard Gecko Club. Yeah.
club. Okay. Is that you're educating people to look at their animal differently. So if I'm a new breeder, and I truly believe Gold Standard Gecko Club is for the new hobbyists that have not been in it forever, because I think it's a hard sell for people who have been in this hobby for a long time. I
Yeah.
think it's a kind of just a new thing. It's weird. It's different. But for the new hobbyists, I think it is the perfect avenue for educating people on what to look for when you are buying an animal that you want to breed. Pet quality animals, you pick. It's your choice. You can get whatever you want. But if you want to be a breeder, it is important to educate people that there should be a standard that you are setting yourself, your animals, and your collection to in order to meet what I would say is the best breeding standards and where you get your higher prices when you sell your animals and you get your, all of the things that come with being a breeder that's intentional.
Yeah.
I think that there's not a lot of information out there on what's the difference between a breedable animal and a non-breedable animal. And I think that's where Gold Standard is working to bridge the gap for the people that don't understand it so that they can say when they're looking at an animal, what does its head look like? We get a lot of lateral views of animals in listings. See a lot of
Yeah.
that. And you can't even see the animal's structure. You can't see their dorsal, like how wide their dorsal is. You can't see what the neck is doing. You can't see the head. And I think that having a standard that people learn through the gold standard is going to help people ask the right questions, because you should be able to ask for a picture from the top view of an animal you want to buy, especially for an animal that's a lot of money. You should, and breeders should understand why people are asking those questions. So I think
Right.
for the new hobbies, it's the best way to understand where the hobby is going, because I do feel like even though there's a lot of the kind of subpar breeding going on, we are to a point where we're starting to separate, and people are starting to realize like there's a really low quality lily and there's a really high quality lily, and there's a lot in between. Um, Same with, every other morph out there. So I think I love that. I love that you are educating people on you know, what to look for in a breedable animal, a reproducible animal. Any other hobby that produces animals, you can look at livestock, dogs, everything else. Nobody is just, I mean, you have your like puppy mills and things like that, but nobody who's like a real breeder in that world isn't breeding to some kind of standard. And I think that's
Right.
awesome. Because I don't think that the reptile hobby has ever had anything like that. And especially, obviously specifically talking now crested geckos and gargoyle geckos, but it should go for a lot of them. Just,
Yeah, no,
down the road.
we're gonna do we're gonna do we're gonna do everything. Next year we're gonna add leopard geckos too. But yeah, it takes
Well, and it's
time.
hard. It takes time because you've got to figure out what is that standard. We have,
Yeah.
we have breeders who will disagree on even like the head structure thing. Like, oh, it's not necessarily standard because in the wild they have no crests. And it's like, yes, obviously, but also in the wild, there's a buck deer that has puny horns and nobody wants to hunt that one for a
In the
trophy.
in the wi- in the wild, you don't get a bright red gecko either.
Yeah, you don't get anything. So it's like, what are you choosing? Like, and again, I have nothing against anybody who doesn't care about structure, but setting the standards got to be challenging for you guys. And I think that,
Yeah.
what you've done with Crested Gecko, I think is awesome. I think it's very easy for someone who's getting into the hobby to like look at your thing and say, oh, I didn't even realize looking at, you know, these two little things was even mattered. Like, who cares or whatever. And I
Yeah.
think that will eventually weed out some of the people that don't care that are breeding, and it will continue to make this hobby grow, you know, into more and more and more without
We're gonna
sacrificing
we're gonna make
too much.
we're gonna make crested geckos great again.
I love it. so so yeah, I love that about the gold standard. I think the education piece is very needed. I think it'll evolve into really great things. I think I would say the thing that I dislike, but I would say to me still doesn't, like, I don't really understand how you're going to be able to navigate it, is the judging side of things. And I guess for me, it's just like when you think about judges, again, I compare it to other people who already have what you're doing like implemented and they're doing a really great job with it. But to
Yeah.
become a judge of a horse show, let's say, like, you've gone through some training and we know we're all on the same page. And
Yeah.
you know that type of a thing. And I think that getting like more years under the belt and figuring out like how do we get the most non-biased judges, how do we get the judges who will go to standard and not necessarily what they like to see.
They
Not saying
like.
that that's happened at all, but I think it's human nature. And I think that's
Yeah.
a lot of people that judge horses, they don't have horses, care about horses, or even know horses. They came and learned what is the standard of your animal, and they
Yeah.
got trained on it, and they have a non-biased opinion, and that's where politics comes into place. And I think it's just going to be a tough thing to navigate
Yeah.
when you're allowing breeders to be judges. I think it's one of those tough avenues that is just going to be, that's going to have to be figured out, really.
Yeah,
uh,
I think that kind of stuff, it's just like, because we're so in the beginning of all this, it's hard it's hard enough to get people involved. And when I'm picking judges, I'm trying my very best. Like, one of the things that I care about when I pick a judge is that this person has to have long-term experience. They have to have produced multiple generations of that particular species that they're judging. So that's one of the things that I kind of like have in mind. But just because it's so hard to find, like you said, qualified people that know what they're looking at, or that I could talk to about, that little, pivot, or that little dip inside between the tail and the hip bone. Like, I don't want that. A lot of people won't even know what I'm talking about, but people that have seen thousands of geckos will get what I'm saying. But it is a challenging part. And every time we do, an event and we have the judges, I try to like we all get together and I go over like what we're looking for and what what are faults or whatever, and we're all on the same page. But it is hard because you know the politics thing is always going to be, I had somebody that put in a gecko that didn't win, say like make a comment, and I was like, I didn't say anything like, but I was just in my mind, I'm like, I knew this was gonna happen. Like if you didn't win, not you and not that person in particular, but I knew like people that didn't win were gonna feel some type of way about it because in their eyes they have the best gecko no matter what. So it's hard to tell people like, well, I know your gecko has better color, but we're not just looking at color. I know your gecko has better structure, but we're not just looking at structure. It has to have the best or close to the best of all these 10 things. And
Mm-hmm.
the
But I think
judging is
that
something that,
comes with time, because I will tell you, like the first time I put my geckos into the gold standard, I
Mhm.
wasn't really looking at all of the different judging elements. And then when you reached out and were like, do you have anything you want to put in? I was much more strategic about what I sent this time based off of what I learned from the last time. Like with Mac, I mean, Mac, like I said, he's a boss. He's one of the best geckos I have. And he didn't win. And I remember the feedback about him specifically. And so for this time, I was like, okay, like I'm going to be a little more strategic about what I send. So I think as people enter over time, they're going to realize or figure out like what are your show animals and what aren't. I mean, and I think that just
yeah,
comes with time. And I don't want to say that I've had any negative issues with the political side of it. This is just something that I observe potentially being like an issue.
yeah. No, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's
I know
gonna
it's gonna
happen.
happen. And it's normal. I know like I have pretty thick skin, I would consider, and I knew that because of this, some people were going to start to not like me and some people would care or not care. And I've already seen it. Like I've already seen comments made here and there and all that stuff. But I feel like the net, it's going to be a net positive for the community. And even though you or somebody else may not agree, oh, I think this head structure is smaller or bigger than I like, or I don't think this pattern for this particular category is up or whatever, there's going to be disagreements. But what I'm trying to do is you have a way of thinking, I have a way of thinking. We got to meet in the middle where we could both agree that, okay, this is going to be the standard. And I've talked to plenty of breeders about this. And when I was developing this, that's what I was trying to do. I was like, okay, this is in my mind the standard, right? Now let me pick a couple brains and see where we all agree. And I kind of like start to put it together. And there's certain things that we obviously disagree are that we obviously could all agree that are not gonna be, you know, part of the standard, like a bald head or a very narrow head for a crested gecko. But then there's other things that, you know, are going to be worked out as we go on. And I just want to remind people that this is the beginning and we're trying to do our best. And, eventually it might get to a point that we have it ironed out completely, or we might not ever. But at the end of the day, look at it for what like.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
the other
work
thing
in
is,
progress.
it's supposed to be freaking fun. Like my
Yeah, yeah,
employee and
yeah.
I were talking about it. We were like, okay, A, like again, when you get a trophy as an adult, but B, like what a fun way to display your hard work besides just
Yeah,
selling people animals. Like sometimes like I know for me, like selling people animals is a bonus, but like for me to be like, yeah, go Bertha, go Chip, and then like get a trophy, and then all of a sudden, I get my
you know what?
little certificate. I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, it's
Yeah,
fun.
and
It's like whatever. Who cares if it's whatever it is? It's supposed to just be fun,
exactly,
and that's
exactly.
how I
It's
see it. I see
true,
my adult,
guys.
my
Show us his
adult.
geckos.
Yeah, but that's why you say I'm competitive, because it's like it's fun to have some competition.
Yeah,
The only way we can compete in this hobby, and don't think that we're not competing, is by like who's selling these animals for this, or who's got the first edge on this genetic or whatever it is. And so this is just like such a low key way to be like, neener, neener, neener. And like, even
Yeah.
Dan was somewhat jealous that he didn't send anything when I got all my trophies. I was like, well, you should have sent
Yeah.
some animals, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
It,
I think
it,
it should be for that too. And
a
I
lot
see
of people
Tara, like
when,
when I'm like, see, it's
oh,
fun.
yo, Tara is super competitive too. You and Tara are like super
Oh,
competitive. I think,
I
I
know.
think the
We try
girls,
really
I
hard
think
to
the
mask
girls,
our disappointment. Like, it's so hard,
yeah,
but when you win, you're like,
yeah.
"Yay!"
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I'm that way too. I'm very competitive. But you know what's funny? Like when in this past Daytona show, Daniela was watching over and explaining to everybody what gold standard was at the gold standard table because I was taking care of the Tikisgeckos table. And a lot of people were seeing the trophies that don't know anything about gold standard, and they were like congratulating Daniela on all her awards for her award-winning geckos. And I'm like, oh, that just, and I'm like, oh my God, if I, if I'm winning awards, I'm like, when I'm selling geckos, I'm gonna display my awards. I'm like, I didn't even think of that in the past
No,
when I was
I
trying to
didn't honestly
promote.
until you said it to me right now. I'm like, I guess I could bring them to the table. That's kind of
Yeah,
a good
like when
idea.
you're doing a reptile show or a Palmstreet live or whatever, just have your awards in
Yeah,
the back, like just and be like so people know because a lot of
yeah.
newer people, what also like what to the point you were saying earlier, like to the newer people, uh, we we're trying to like okay, legitimize this to so the newer people that don't have any idea on these small details could look at gold standard and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, but I see that this gecko won a couple gold standard
Or
championships.
yeah,
So
or I see that Tara has won this many awards. I might reach out to Tara and be like, "Hey, Tara, like, what, what do you have? Like, can you give me information on your geckos or whatever?" So it
yeah,
ultimately it's a win-win in every direction for anybody who gets
yeah,
involved in it. And it, you know, maybe it does seem like a little bit childish and kind of like pointless in the grand scheme of some bigger breeders that like it's not their
yeah,
wheelhouse, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
builds
yeah,
community, builds relationship. It is, you know, in my opinion, one of those things that when it catches on, it's going to be awesome. And I promise you this, I will have been in these competitions for when it's not all the way to when it takes off. And like some of us
yeah.
OGs are going to be like original award winners, and I'm going to wear it
Yes.
proudly from the very
Oh my
beginning.
God.
And it's addicting. I'm like, okay, Dave, good wins the next competition. I'm picking my competitors. I will plan. I will not breed those animals if I have to send them in this time of year. I'll wait till they get
Yeah.
home. I'm like already like, oh, I can only send 3. Okay, shoot. So like it's
And,
fun when you get into it and you let go of all the other crap that is
yeah,
holding you
and you
back.
know that's what a lot of dog breeders do. Like they will put off their studs, not breed them to win a competition because they know after they win that competition, if they champ out, they could charge more for the babies, for the
Yeah,
puppies.
which wouldn't that
And
be cool if that's how this like translated? It was like chip.
this
People
is
know
yeah,
chip. They're like, oh, I can, and
yeah,
that's how I think that people that aren't big breeders, that's how they're seeing it. Because I will tell you the reason why is because when we posted all this stuff, people are like, congratulations. Oh my gosh, I better get my chip kid before he wins grand champion because then he's gonna be even
yeah,
more. And I don't even plant that seed in people's minds. You know, they plant it
yeah, yeah,
themselves. And
yeah,
it's like it goes along with kind of the idea of, you know, breeding these animals for every generation to be better and better and better. And, you know, I
yeah,
think it's super fun. I think it's something else to think about and just enjoy doing with your animals. I mean, it's not going to be for everybody, but for those of us who
yeah.
are competitive
Nothing,
and don't care
nothing is
that
for
much,
everybody.
yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I can't remember the third question you asked me. What I like, what I dislike. Was there a
No,
third?
that was it. That was it.
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to have you tell me what you liked and disliked about Gold Standard. And that
I
that
feel
answers that gives me
I feel like we should definitely get a gear package if we win. I want like a hoodie.
oh, true. Oh, that's a good idea actually. Maybe we will do that. And you see, this is why I like asking y'all because you guys give me ideas. And by the way, so you know, you're getting you already got a jar from Pen for a Repashy that they sponsored. you're gonna get a care package from ZooMed and a gift certificate from Ghanns Cricket Farm.
Cool.
So a lot of, the first prize best of show gets a lot of cool stuff. And I know that as we go and put on more shows and this thing starts to grow and more sponsors get behind it, whatever wins best of show is gonna there's gonna be a bigger prize every time. So that's exciting
Yeah,
too.
but that's so cool. I'm like, who cares about anything else? It's like, oh, and down the road, who knows if you won't be able to do like cash prizes. It's like, how fun would
Yeah,
it be to be
yeah,
purchasing show animals that could win you cash as well as
yeah.
animals that you could sell? And like, I could totally see myself not giving two craps about selling animals, but just breeding for show animals because I'm so
Yeah.
competitive. Like, oh, Nicholetta doesn't really sell her geckos. She just breeds them so she can go compete. And then
Yeah.
she gives them really nice homes. All she cares about is winning.
That's funny. Yeah, look, I'm super excited about the future of it, and I will remember you guys for the forever of for believing in me and this whole thing because there's a few of you that from the beginning have always been like, yeah, we're down, we're gonna support you, whatever, and I appreciate that. I just want to let you know. So
Well, you've always been very
Nicoletta,
loyal to me. So.
yeah, always, always. We're about to hit it 2 hours, so I want to end it.
Wow.
I want to take up too much of your time. I just want to thank you again and give the people, let them know where they could find you. Juliana's, wait, Juliana's your middle name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so
But you
Juliana's
sounded better
Geckos
than
on everything.
Nicoletta's geckos.
Yeah, the G, Juliana's Geckos. So that's
Yes.
on
I have
everything, Facebook.
yep, everything. I will be honest, I never get on Facebook, so I'm definitely more on Instagram with
How can
Giuliana's. I
people buy?
also have a
How
say
can
what?
people buy your geckos? How can people buy your geckos if they want to buy a gecko?
Yeah, so I list things on my website, but I do it like in like a group listing. So I don't constantly have animals up on my website to buy. So for example, this weekend I'll list about 30 animals. Whatever doesn't sell will go with me to the next expo that's here.
Yeah.
And so really, and then the really best way to get my nicest stuff is to message me on Instagram and say, hey, I'm looking for this, do you have it? Because typically I can find people what they want, but I'm a hoarder, so a lot of times, like, by the time something gets listed, it's been thought about like 400 times before it's actually let go of. So if you're looking for something specific, the best way is to just reach out. Most of my nice
Okay.
stuff sells before it even hits my website.
Sweet. All right. So check out Nicoletta's website. Check her out on Instagram. Again, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
So much fun. Yes, love it. Thanks, David.